There are two gates into the Cathedral Close at Norwich. This one is St Ethelbert's Gate, built mainly around 1300. On the little green just inside the gate is a statue of the Duke of Wellington, the victor at the Battle of Waterloo. At the other end of this green is a statue of Admiral Nelson, who had been a pupil at the school here, as also was Raja Brooke of Sarawak. And near here is the other gate, the Erpingham Gate, built around 1420. Just outside this gate we can look across to Tombland, which I think was the pre-Norman market area. Just here is a memorial to Nurse Edith Cavell, shot by the Germans in 1915. She is buried near the east end of the cathedral. Sir Thomas Erpingham, after whom this gate is named, was a hero at the Battle of Agincourt, and is mentioned in Shakespeare's Henry V, where he is known as that good old knight. Incidentally, you can see on this gate this arrangement of flints in this pattern, which you can see on several local churches like Lavenham and Long Melford. We come back into the close, and down this side we see the school which Nelson attended. The medieval school, which had been established before 1210, was re-established as a royal foundation by Edward VI in 1517. It moved to this building in 1553. The western porch was added to the building around 1430, and the perpendicular style window was inserted around 1450. Two new statues were commissioned to mark the millennium and to fill the two vacant niches at the western door. The one to the left represents Mother Julian of Norwich, and to the right Saint Benedict. They are in Ancaster stone by local sculptor David Holgate. I do hope you find this film interesting or useful in some way, because I very nearly came to a sudden end whilst making it. You may have seen the scene in the TV show Only Fools and Horses, where Del Boy falls sideways like a felled tree onto the floor. Well, I did exactly that here, but it didn't seem quite so funny. Wandering about, looking up at the ceiling as you do, I got my foot caught under something and went down just like that, except I cracked my head either on the floor or a stone tomb. When I collected myself, I found I had a bump on my head, but I still had hold of my camera, so that was okay. After an hour or so in quiet contemplation, I decided that that was just a warning from head office, and promised to try to be a good boy in future. The See of East Anglia was established around 630 AD at Dunwich. It was merged with that of Elmham in 956, and then transferred its base to Thetford in 1075. Now, in 1091, Herbert de Lossinger purchased the position of bishop for £1,900, thus committing the sin of simony. As penance, he went to Rome, where the Pope granted him absolution on condition that he built a new cathedral. The bishop bought some land in Norwich, and the foundation stone was laid in 1096. We'll just walk through this opening in the pulpitum into the choir. Alongside the cathedral, he built a bishop's palace and a Benedictine monastery. He must have had a bob or two. So we have here another example of that peculiarly English arrangement where the church of a priory is a cathedral with the bishop's seat, but the whole organisation is run by the prior and his monks. At the dissolution of the monasteries under Henry VIII, the priory was closed on the 6th of April 1536. The monastery buildings fell into neglect or were destroyed or converted to secular use. Fortunately for us, the cathedral itself was refounded on the same day as a secular cathedral, and apart from some looting, retained its integrity. But peculiarly not English, this cathedral has an ambulatory passing around the semicircular apse at the east end. Chapels are placed on the outside of such an ambulatory, and two of the originals are retained here. We are left with what has been described as an iconic Norman cathedral and one of the most complete major Romanesque buildings in Europe. But the last 4 or 5 centuries have not been a period of loving care, preservation and improvement for the building. As we have described in other episodes of this series, particularly at Lichfield Cathedral and the Lady Chapel at Ely, Norwich, and all English churches really, have been through times of neglect or even deliberate destruction. The care we take of these buildings today may not be as good as it could be, but is excellent when compared to some previous periods. For example, here at Norwich, during the Civil War, 1642-51, the Dean and Chapter of the Cathedral and the Bishop were removed from office by government decree. The building fell into a state of disrepair and ruin. It was used as a barrack house for the mayor's bodyguard of parliamentarian soldiers. An angry Puritan mob had already invaded the building and destroyed all symbols which they regarded as Roman Catholic. They smashed the window glass, pulled down anything that they could, destroyed the organ, vestments, hymn books, etc., etc. The building lay in ruins for 2 decades. Do go and see Norwich Cathedral. There's much more to see than we've been able to cover in this film, especially outside if it's not raining, and the natives seem quite friendly to me. Just as I was leaving, I happened to notice that Her Majesty and Prince Philip had been there only a few days earlier to open the new refectory and visitor reception suite. Well, they could have told me.